Hi, this is the Drupal usability meeting for October 17th, 2017. And we collected a couple topics ahead of time. We have an ongoing topic to look at cloning fields. And Roland wanted to talk about redesigning the admin UI, all the discussions around there. And there's also an issue we can look at with the available updates links. So do we want to start with the cloning fields one that we talked a lot about?
Sure.
So I think Roland provided some feedback,
yeah.
but we are still lacking some feedback.
Yeah. So the feedback I got is that, and I'll look at a couple of sites I've worked on, and yeah, the use cases varies per site. Some sites have just the same settings for a field for all the bundles, but some sites have different display modes per bundle, and using different field settings and field display settings and different settings on the node form. So things vary, but it looks like the most used scenario is when a field have the same settings across all bundles. Yeah, but that's just based on my personal research and while I was talking to my colleagues and checking some projects. So, but in general, I think because there are other use cases, the current patch works for the first one, but it would confuse users if they have other use cases, because it would just randomly pick something which is, I think it's confusing. So yeah,
what is the first
that's my feedback. Pardon?
What is the first use case?
So the first, and if you
okay, yes,
open up the the issue, my comment has, I think, 4.
Yeah, all the way down the page. There's a comment.
First use case is where everything's configured the same way, everything using the same field storage.
Yeah.
And I guess one question is, most popular, is that like 80%? Because if it is, maybe that's good enough. Second comment is that even if you don't want to reuse something, are you likely to get something that's any worse than the current defaults? And if it's you're actually worried about the confusion factor, we can probably help that with a little bit of messaging.
Yeah, in terms of popularity, I think it's less than 80%. So it's about 60% or something. So it's not for all the cases, or not most of the cases. But yeah, I think we need feedback from a wider audience.
Could we also help that a bit by providing better defaults anyway? I think, for example, for images, the full image is usually the default. The core default for display. Would it help if we identified better out-of-the-box defaults for fields?
that might help, but I think that's certainly out of scope for this issue. But
Yeah, it's not what this
probably in
is
scope
about.
for the discussion, though.
Yeah. Because if we have a bit more sensible defaults, then okay, let's assume that 60% is about right for that use case. If we then optimize for that one and not make it random, at least for the others, that would be an improvement, I think.
Yeah. The main question is how to create a user interface element that's not confusing. So once you select a field from the drop down, what should happen?
I can't do this without screens. I cannot imagine all this.
Benji,
What
would
are
you
we
mind
looking at?
sharing your screen if you have your patch prepared or something?
I'm not sure I have anything running at the moment. If you scroll up to comment 26, there are a couple of screenshots.
Oh yeah.
And that's not the current patch. This is the way it was before I took Angie's suggestion and removed the choice. So just using opt groups so that you make a single selection. It was also suggested that we keep the initial drop-down list, select an existing field, and then once that selection is made, present a second drop-down list, a sort of hierarchical select approach, where once you've chosen the field, or technically the field storage, you then choose the bundle. And of course, we won't use the word bundle in the interface, but that's what's going on in the back end.
Would people know what they are choosing between based on just the label? We are running into the limitation of select list as a user interface element, right? I'm reminded again about the Dreamfields patch that people may or may not know about, where exactly this interface is made visual.
The which fields patch?
Yeah, it's the working title is the Dreamfields. Dreamfields.
Okay.
Provide users with a issue number 253970. Just to widen the scope of the discussion, at least a bit further. Let's see.
Yeah, for this patch, I think so. One of the confusing element from this drop down was the default settings element, which it's unlikely to be needed. So for so the examples I've collected, it's this option is not necessary. So if we can at least remove that one and make this more. So for example, if you open up this drop down and see image and see the content types that the image field is on, maybe it's more. Maybe it's less confusing. Maybe we need to add something like a copy from article, copy from something. I don't know.
Yeah, but so if the 80% use case is using the same settings everywhere, then it's the superfluous to try to pick which same setting you want to copy that's the same.
Yeah, we have to find a balance between adding a bit of magic without confusing people.
I really think that I don't know who suggested before, but having like a second step or something like a tool with an advanced, I don't know, with advanced settings or something like that, where you can choose a little bit more, and by default you have the default settings. I don't know. I mean, by default you're giving an option, but you are also giving more information or more choices without messing with people's brain.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I would love it to have like a checkbox or something, or a next screen that where I can further customize my selection, so I can choose a field, and if I want, I can further say, okay, copy settings from article or from page content type. And if I don't select anything or don't check that checkbox, it just copies it just create the field with the default settings as it was before.
Exactly.
Yeah, but then it becomes work to choose the shortcut, basically.
What do you mean?
Then the user has to say, yes, let me reuse what I did before. Where I would hope we could arrive here at a situation where the checkbox to reuse the previous one is checked by default, and you uncheck it because you want to do something else. But, okay, maybe we're not sure yet which way that default behavior should, where that balance lies.
Oh yeah.
So what I'm screen sharing, just for context, is an issue. Provide user with a visual way to understand and build content types. This is a proposed experimental module. So this is what we have now, right? You choose from a long list of different types of fields. And what the proposed new user interface would do is actually have visual representations of the things you're adding to your content type. So a date field, a drop-down list, an email address, an image. And then, of course, it uses the interface element for the form, right? Not necessarily for the display, but for the form when you're creating something like it. Let's see. I think this is a table for checking which ones have been covered in that interface. But yes, this makes visual what you're adding to the page, and there's also taken into account a kind of workflow where you can change that default, right? If you create a list, a drop-down or a list, it doesn't necessarily have to be a drop-down list. It could also be a list of checkboxes. So some of the variations we already provide. If there's other configurations you want to use, we provide a way to do that as well. Just for context, I don't know, where do you maybe see how this could help? Because this is not what our issue here is about, right? It's about reuse. So once you've, for the first time, created something, added something like this, and created a display for it.
I really think it's a good solution having something visual, but representing something that you're going to create is easier because you don't have that many configurations. But for something that you have to reuse, how do you visually communicate that it's, I don't know, for example, it's mandatory?
The medium thumbnail.
Yeah, or I don't know, it has a limitation of, I don't know, 20 characters or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, it would be great, but I'm not able to come up with an easy solution, because also it should be maybe programmed, or maybe some custom modules should have to find a way to do that visual representation. I don't know.
Yeah, it's not easy because we have one issue here for dynamically generating visuals, icons.
Yeah.
For
exactly.
for different types of layouts, and that's just one thing, right? Only boxes. So, and it's already complicated. So yeah, it's definitely, definitely it's probably not useful for showing people what they can reuse, or
yeah.
Maybe a good option would be to separate the two things, like reuse or add reuse an existing field and clone an existing field from a bundle. So like two different options or two different, I don't know, drop downs or whatever.
So actually, one thing I take away from that other issue is that you're presenting the form widget for each of the various things, and that's the more visual way to select what sort of field you want. If it's worth an extra step in the multi-part form, then after you've said which field you want, we could present another step in the form where we bring in the widgets from the various different content types, and then maybe have a checkbox saying also copy display modes.
Ooh, not bad. I want to use the teaser, the mini teaser, and the search result.
If those exist on the target bundle, because display modes can be different per bundle.
Right.
Yeah.
So when you're saying multi-step, what are you thinking on?
Well, when you add a field, whether it's new or reused, it's always a multi-step form.
Yeah.
So you say, I want a number field, then we go to the field settings, and so I was suggesting adding another step to that.
Okay.
In general, adding more steps is not great user experience. But if there's enough benefit from it, maybe it's worth it this time.
I mean, I really think it's a good idea, but maybe if you put that two decisions in different screens, maybe it can be confusing for newbies. I mean, what are they talking about? Now are view modes and what I was choosing, and I don't know, it can be a little bit difficult to remember what they were choosing. I don't know.
It's so hard to change something about field UI without not running into 300 other considerations.
Yeah.
That's why some softwares have an advanced checkbox or something which you tick and it reveals
but the
a ton of
multi-step
options.
is a good idea. I mean, actually having this separate step is, I really think it's how our mind will go over it and think about it and take that decision. So probably that multi-step happening on the same page, I don't know, just
in the same
thinking
flow,
loud. Yeah. I mean, that you don't have to go back to another page. You have the choice right over the one that you're doing. I don't know.
So, Benji, do you want to get this patch in, or do we want to think about the more general pattern of copying or cloning defaults? Because right now, I'm not sure what we would need to do to be able to make a decision on this. Maybe we can come up with it, but then the conclusion could still be, good idea. We should not start here. Because I really appreciate you working on this, especially because this is some UI, right? And it's such a core UI, core UI,
Yeah.
that we do want to improve and change.
I think one of the confusions is maybe that. So if you think about from a user perspective, people don't know what's the difference. So people don't know why they need to reuse a field, because for example, I have a content type with a phone number field. I have another content type and I need a phone number field for that one. And there is no such difference between adding a new field called phone number or reusing the existing phone number field. It's more like revealing the underlying architecture of Drupal, because this is how Drupal works. And it's changed from 7 to 8, as far as I know. So in Drupal 7, we had a field for all entity types, right? And in Drupal 8, these fields are being shared between inside of that entity type and the bundles. So you cannot add an existing field that exists in another entity type. For example, user. If you have a field like an image field on the user, you want to have an image field on the node, you have to create a new field. And I think it's a bit confusing, even for me, for myself, when I'm, trying to work this out. Oh, I've already have an image field. Why is it not listed here?
Yes, that's a thing of Drupal 8. So, considering that, would it make sense to stronger emphasize reusing existing fields?
Maybe.
Because if you can only reuse the image within the entity you're already within the entity it's on, so the image field on users, you can only reuse on a different user type and not on your content or taxonomy terms or whatever. So is it then good advice, good site builder advice to reuse instead of create new? Because then if that's so, then this whole screen should be turned around, right? And we should offer a way to first pick one of the existing ones before you even add a new one.
I would do this from the other way around. Like if I'm a site builder and I wanted to have a new field, I'm just typing its name, and if that entity type has the same has a field with the same name, it just reusing it, but it doesn't. It just creates a new one. And from the side builder's perspective, there's no difference, because when you reuse an existing field, all it does is just there's no difference between creating a new one and reusing an existing, because it doesn't copy the settings. So I think maybe the confusion is based on this entire thing. Maybe we even don't need this reuse an existing field thing if we can just simply, I'm just thinking out loudly.
The person that comes here and tries to reuse something, that person is trying to avoid to do some kind of work. So reuse some work that is already done.
I'm not
sure. The
sure.
thing is that we should know if we think it's better to reuse or to clone in that situation, and that's probably what we should provide or not, or simply not provide. I don't know. But
yeah,
I think the goal here is,
if you already have a field called image, you have no option that you have no other option. You have to reuse that field. You cannot create a new field called image because you have one already.
No, you can create a new image field, but you can't call it image.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I personally, but of course it's my opinion, I don't like reusing fields, because if it's a big site, you always end up with situations. So I don't know, maybe we should try to decide what's the proper way, or I don't know how to call it, but the good way of doing it, and try to push people to that way, or I don't know, what's the usual way of doing things. But
for example,
can you explain why do you not like reusing, Christina?
Because I don't know if in the future I'm gonna need to change something from there, and it's gonna differ. It's gonna be different from the two places where I have them, and I can't control the future. So what I'm just doing is creating dependencies that it can avoid me from doing some extra work, but it potentially can create a mess.
Right. You cannot, if you keep reusing, then you cannot make local changes to only there, right? Okay.
Exactly. Then you have to jump to instances, and it's not.
Yeah, I'm with you totally. Happened to me a couple of times. I created multiple fields, like a field underscore image underscore article, or field underscore article underscore image, and field underscore page underscore image, just because this reason, because I didn't want to reuse the field because it caused problems with features as well, because the two fields have the same storage settings and you can just export them once, and etc. etc. So I don't like to reuse existing field feature, to be honest. So totally understand your point.
On the other side, what the problem is that you end up with a lot of fields, and that can also be a problem. That's why I'm not 100% saying one thing or the other one. So.
And then when you decide that you need a custom twig template for some field, if you want to be able to reuse that twig template, you end up with a lot of copy and paste if you're doing it for a bunch of different fields. Whereas if you've planned in advance that all of these fields are reused copies of the same field, you can use a single twig template.
Yeah, but I usually prefer that, because you can just create some instances and reuse templates, call templates from another one. So I'm not that worried
It
about
depends.
that. Yeah.
Well, no. One more question about this. Did you learn to stop reusing, or did you? I mean, did you start with reusing and then learn to not reuse in
Exactly.
certain
That
places?
was my path. I don't know for other people but that was my path. My starting point was, let's make things clean and don't have that many fields. And then I just realized that I was having troubles when I wanted to change stuff. So that was the path.
So maybe still then reusing could be the better training wheels. Maybe it's the best practice for beginners. Something to wrap your head around and then deviate from. Well, it's hard to make a conclusion on one anecdote. But,
yeah, I'm not sure if I'm the best case. Yeah.
No, but I do kind of recognize it with myself. I prefer to reuse when it's the same thing, of course. But then I also, when you get smarter about it, then you can also say, no, this needs to be a different type of image. It's a different kind of image. I needed to have it separate from those other ones.
But
like here, right? Image, field event logo, image, field, image.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a good example already. We're talking in circles. We're not copying any settings just yet.
No, sorry.
Yeah, the thing is that an average user don't understand how Drupal stores the field settings. So, they get confused either way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I totally agree with that. If you just try to reuse something and it's not exactly the same that you are going to clone or to reuse, it's confusing.
Mm-hmm.
How about swapping this reuse existing field drop down, not listing the fields, but listing the bundles as groups. So you can choose which bundle you wanna,
Yeah, I always thought that was the more natural way from the site builder's point of view. And at my local Drupal meetup, I asked, and it was nearly universal, choose the field first and then the bundle.
What's the bundle again?
The content type, the node type.
Right.
Article or page.
But here you've already chosen to add to page, right?
Right. So we're adding to the page, but then we might have article and two other content types already configured on the site. So choosing which bundle we're copying from.
Okay. In the case of copying from, yeah.
Maybe we, yeah, so you go.
Thanks. Maybe it's, if what we are trying to do is to help people doing less work, we could just rename instead of reusing. If we at the end decide that something like not using new fields, not reusing fields is better. Instead of saying reuse, we could say what I was going to say. I just have it in Catalan, not in English. Use this field as a template or something like that.
A preset.
Yeah, something like that, where if something is a template or a preset, you are aware that some stuff is not going to be exactly the same, that you still have to fill some stuff there. But anyway, just an idea. If we decided that the other thing was better.
Well, maybe instead of looking at the same admin page that we've been looking at, if we want to copy the tags field from article to basic page, maybe we should look at it on the article manage fields page, and add a checkbox or something there saying copy this field with its settings to the page content type. Sort of get at this functionality from an entirely different location.
Right. And what would we then be sending over? It's let's see, in the field setting, the display settings, and the form display settings.
I think so.
Yeah.
And that's the way the patch currently works, because I think so.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Copy this to.
You already have a drop-down list. Edit, storage settings, delete. Add one that says clone.
Yeah.
That would make a difference, for sure.
Yes. Yeah. Interesting. That's an interesting avenue to explore. Yeah. Next topic. I mean, yeah. I don't think we'll get to a hard conclusion on this anyway. So it'll.
Yeah, I tweeted at people when we started the topic, so we'll see if we'll get some more feedback by next week.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Food for thought.
Thanks, Benji.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, yeah, that tweet, yes.
Yeah.
So I think we've had some other stuff to talk about since we started a bit late. If people are available,
I kind of have to check out. Just for
okay.
timing reasons.
Yeah, it's getting a bit late. So, yeah.
All right, makes sense.
Thanks
Cool.
everybody for tuning in.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank
See you
you.
next week.
Bye bye.
Thank you.
Next time.
Goodbye.
Cheers, guys.